Okay, we're back to talk about Widow's Bay, episode 9 on Apple TV. This episode titled Emergency Shelter, written by Bobak Esfarjani, directed by Eero Mirai. In 1702, Sarah Warren flees Widow's Bay, which we saw previously. She's with Richard's children on a rowboat, but fog overtakes them. Frances, the daughter, falls overboard while the other children begin bleeding from their eyes and mouths. In the present, the storm continues to approach Widow's Bay. Patricia tells Tom he has to sound the sirens so that everyone knows to get into the shelter before it becomes too dangerous. Tom tries to gather some equipment to help with the island's electricity and witnesses Todd, the shaman, get blown away by the storm. Patricia realizes from an old journal that Francis survived in 1702 and started a family on the island. They all realize someone from Warren's bloodline must still be alive, which is why the island is still cursed. While everyone's in the shelter, Rosemary begins a very interesting look into the genealogy of Francis Warren, discovers that Ruth Livingston, Tom's elderly assistant, is Richard Warren's last remaining descendant. Tom, Patricia, and Wick debate whether they should kill her since she has lived a long life, she has no children or spouse, and her death probably saves the island from the curse. Um, One major question answered in this episode.
Yeah.
Otherwise, quite short and quite a bit of just table setting. I don't know if you agree with that assessment, because just basically this was giving us the answer and setting us up for what's going to happen in what looks to be, from what we know already, a sort of supersized length of the finale.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of the runtime, I don't think it was really shorter than the preceding episodes. But maybe your feeling is not a whole lot happened, which I think is fair.
Yeah, I mean, you think about
And
time with Tom running back and forth from the shelter, the
which is
length
funny.
of Rosemary's very entertaining genealogy, right? So, maybe that's part of the beauty of the show. They could have done that in 5 seconds, but they still created this whole scene that was brilliant.
Oh yeah, so I have some more thoughts about that. We're gonna talk about that more at some point. But yeah, to start with the broad strokes a little bit more first, wasn't really a lot of horror in this episode. You have the moment where Shaman Todd gets sucked up into the sky, and that's about as close as we come, really. I mean, of course, ominous storm and all of that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff, but no, not really a lot of horror elements. And I think it is leaning more into the comedic elements, which is it's fine. It worked well enough for me. It's interesting. We were basically right, or the world was right. I mean, about the girl falling off the boat or whatever, right? We saw the painting and so on and so forth. And now, well, this is another funny moment because Tom's getting upset about the fact that he's going to have to, turn on the siren and make all of these tourists get into an emergency shelter and all of that. So like he tries to rip that painting off the wall and so on, and that's all amusing. We got some good physical comedy there. But Patricia notices that in the painting, the woman's missing a finger, and she sort of puts two and two together there, right? Because she knows that Frances Warren had lost part of her finger because of her brother running it over with a wagon wheel or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It's funny how that like people in this town just like know all this weird lore and history. You know what I mean? Maybe it tracked. Also, really funny where the old guy is at the door talking about the storm, and Patricia just shuts his door in his
It's a
face,
very
Tom's
slow
door.
door slam. Yeah.
um, so lots of humor involved in all of that, but I want to talk about this aspect because I mean, it's not just us who were talking about this possibility that, oh, well, really the bloodline isn't over, and the little girl and the painting in the water, and putting that together, um, and so on. So for the show to confirm that might have felt a little bit um, underwhelming or what have you. It definitely wasn't like, hooray, we were right. And so I was thinking about this more though, and what I think I really appreciate is I've decided I completely believe that the creators of Widow's Bay, Katie Dippold and whoever else, whoever's in the writers room, there's generally a room and that, all of that. You know, you said his name before. Bobak as Farjani gets the
Yeah.
writer credit on the stuff that all these, but whoever's involved creatively. I'm completely confident that they're aware of that.
Yeah.
That they know by the time they get to this episode that people who are into the show, or they at least hope that there are people who are into the show who are thinking about it sufficiently to have been speculating in this direction. So I think they know that already. And then the question is, okay, well, who is it, right? And we've talked about people online theorizing, or what if it's Evan, or what if it's Patricia, or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think I'll say more about this, but I won't let you talk. Um, but I think that the fact that if you view it through that lens, at least makes me appreciate the episode more and to find it funnier. But
Yeah.
what's on that?
Yeah. So I had this whole sort of mental gymnastics that was happening about this revelation, right? So yes, this was sort of widely speculated that someone is on the island. I think that there was a lot of consensus that that was going to be what happened. Okay, so the general sort of review of this series was we were going to get that revealed to us. The question was who. And so there's a lot of speculation about, as you said, a lot of speculation about Evan, a lot of speculation about Patricia, Wick, some of these OG people of the island. So I guess that's a sense of, how do we feel as viewers or as people that really dive into these shows and consume these things and really, appreciate them. I think we both do. These idea of, I don't know, was Ruth the underwhelming choice, or were we just more underwhelmed that oh yeah, we sort of knew it all along and you didn't really surprise us. The only surprise is who it is. And then, we're sort of left with, I mean, I have to admit, I was getting intrigued by the idea of it being Evan and Tom having to make a choice between, his son and the island. And now,
Yeah.
we still have a trolley problem in place, but it's okay, you've got a elderly woman who's, has no family. It looks like Tom's almost made his decision as he walks out the door. And obviously, that's remained to be seen.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more, but I would take a step back from that and talk about Rosemary's presentation because I thought this was hilarious. But there's a couple aspects to it, that make it as funny as I think it is. One is just in, I don't know, her demeanor or her disposition. The fact she lights up a cigarette and complains about the fan being turned on. The moment when Patricia asks her to stop saying lesbian because of how she's saying the word, just totally. I totally get where Patricia's coming from too. So there's lots of great stuff in there. But also, I feel like in this almost kind of Andy Kaufman inspired sort of way, the show's messing with us. Like insofar as if we were we have been thinking about this. We have been maybe speculating about, okay, well, who's the descendant going to be, and so on and so forth, right? That we, as the audience, are kind
Yeah,
of like Tom entering the room. Just tell me. No, you have to sit through this presentation. And in a meaningful way, a lot of it is just like kind of pointless. You know what I mean? Like, we don't necessarily need to work through all of the genealogy and all of the dead babies and all of that. Um, but it's funny, I think, and it's funny in itself, but it's also playing at this level where it's almost like the joke's on us in a certain kind of way.
yeah.
Um,
That I
did
just
you feel that way? Mm.
I felt I don't necessarily think that this scene with Rosemary and Dale Dickey, we just have to give her the credit there, is necessarily my favorite of the season, but it almost is the most the scene that defines the show the most, almost because there are very few shows that would do something like this. There are very few that would say that would hold the
Yeah,
suspense when you know where you're going, you know we want to answer this question, but instead we're going to let Rosemary, yeah, talk about get upset about the fact that you won't let her tell the story that she saw the lady's painting and knows how, knows about her infidelities, but you don't care about that. You just want to get to the answer, right? So it's just a kind of a brilliant to sort of turn this idea on its head. And why I think I just think there's so many great things about this show that it just has been subversive of just the normal, we're going to follow some tropes, but we're going to be subversive about the way we get to them and the way that we accomplish them. And so, yeah, just hearing Rosemary talk about dead baby lesbian, for 10 minutes is I mean, I thought pretty brilliant.
yeah, I thought it was great, and I mean, I know this comparison won't land for everyone necessarily, but for any Twin Peaks fans, fellow Twin Peaks fans listening, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the scene, and I think it's part 12 of The Return Fare with Charlie and Audrey, where Charlie's on the phone, you hear half the phone conversation and everything. That also pissed people off at the time, and maybe still does. But I don't know. I personally, I kind of can enjoy a little bit of trolling of the audience. Maybe that's the kind
Yeah.
of word that I want here, insofar as like if you were watching really just wanting to know the answer, I think I've suggested this a couple times over the course of the podcast. I think that that's making a certain kind of mistake. Like I don't think the
Yeah.
show is primarily about the mystery. And
And
indeed,
that's, it's kind of what I was hitting on in the beginning. Is like this episode could have been 12 minutes long, but they've added these
yeah,
things that just give a lot of layers of entertainment to this, not only this episode, but this entire season. And I don't mind them. I don't mind sitting through that to get to the answer because it's just done so well.
yeah, like the humor of the whole thing with the needing the starter from the lighthouse generator and the back and forth, all of that kind of stuff um, is funny. You also have the sheriff Bashir deciding to leave. He's taking this seriously now. He wants to get his pregnant wife off the island, um, but they can't because of the storm. And I did enjoy this parallel too, insofar as the episode opens with Sarah and the kids on a rowboat trying to leave
Mm,
the island, and of course, like they all die except for
yeah.
Francis, um, who gets all manages to wash ashore, right? But then the scene between Wick and Bashir, where Bashir is thinking about taking this small motorboat, and Wick says, "You can't leave on that. That boat came here
Yeah.
on a boat." So it's like, yeah, right. I mean, I have no idea to what extent Wick might be thinking about something like how Sarah Warren and the kids tried to leave, because presumably they know about that
Yeah.
and that they died. But you can't leave on just a small boat. So that is a thread where I wonder where that's going to go. Is she going to end up giving birth in the emergency shelter or something? That's something I started thinking about. But of course, we only have one episode left in the season, so I don't know how much they'll be able to do next week.
Yeah. I almost found myself wondering, would her labor be the ticking clock of the finale, right? So it's sort of like, is this
Yeah.
thing resolved before the baby is born? So the baby is born with or without the curse and can leave or cannot leave I don't know exactly how all that works and the mechanics of it. Presumably when the curse is done, they can all leave the island, but it's just as an interesting sort of dynamic to the time of how things are resolved next week.
Yeah, and of course, there's another aspect of this too, where I really am enjoying the show, and I know you are too, and I think a lot of
Hmm.
people are, and that's great. So I wanted to keep going, and presumably they have ideas about how to keep it going. You know what I mean? So if we're dwelling with this premise right now of, oh, there's this curse related to Richard Warren's bloodline, oh no, it's the sweet old lady Ruth that makes you the birthday cake and watches your kid Evan and all that.
Yeah.
Who at the same time is unwed, doesn't have any kids, and like is pretty old. I don't know how old she is exactly, but she was like Miss Widow's Bay in the 1950s or something. Um, but anyhow,
Yeah.
what I was trying to say is, what I was trying to say is, there's a question of, okay, well, what's the plan to spin it forward, right? So I'm expecting sort of two things in the season finale. One is some level of resolution, but the other is laying the groundwork, or at least leaving the door open for more. So like there's no part of me that believes, in other words, that anything's going to happen where the result's going to be that the curse is just completely over and no more weird stuff happens on Widow's Bay. Like I don't think
Right.
that's a narrative possibility.
Something will be overlooked, something will become uncovered. I think, yeah, if there's any chance, which I think that there's a strong chance that this will have a second or third season, that there will be some sort of loose end or yeah, stone unturned after the finale is over next week.
Well, and one aspect of this, I raised this question before a couple of times, and this is maybe part of why, which is um, Richard Warren apparently made this deal with the Dark God on the
Yeah.
island or whatever. what led him to make that deal is something maybe worth thinking about. They were struggling to survive and so on beforehand, but again, it does getting rid of his bloodline, just ending that pact meaningfully make everything better. If you still have this like dark entity at play, no. So I think there are ways you could
Yeah.
go there. Like I still don't feel like we've gotten an answer precisely as to what Richard Warren got out of it, like, or the residents of Widows Bay got out of it. Um, there's just some vague lines about it allowing them to survive when perhaps otherwise would have starved to death or something like that. But yeah, so I don't know. That's one thing I'm thinking about. It could mean like okay, the pact's over, and maybe that means people born on the island can now leave, but that doesn't mean that the weird stuff is completely gone or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, you may to use sort of analogy of something that's this year, break out of that basement of the place that's torturing you. That doesn't mean that the person that put you there is gone. They may think that things are over because they have followed the directions of Richard Warren. However, this whatever it is, entity, dark god, curse, whatever it is, still exists and still can come back at some point, it would seem like.
Yeah. So a couple other dangling threads or lingering questions in that regard. One of the big ones I am thinking about, most directly related to what we've been talking about here with the entity or whatever word we're going to use. Maybe they'll give a name at some point. That would be nice. So it's always
Yeah.
nice to be able to say, Pennywise or something like that. Um, one is the hatch,
Yeah.
which, we saw in, I believe it was the end of episode one.
Hmm.
And then we saw again in the flashback episode, if we want to call it that, right back in 1702, where Sarah discovers it, but she doesn't open it. And it really is kind of a weird thing. There's a hatch and there's like a chair in front of it. So what
Yeah.
exactly is that all about? We might guess or infer that it was something like Richard Warren would sacrifice people to the dark god there or something. I don't know, but we haven't returned to that to get any kind of definitive answer. And then maybe related to that, I think would be why the priest or reverend or whatever his title was exactly, um, why he killed himself, which I was thinking about again. I don't know if that feels like a dangling thread to everyone, but it kind of does to me a little bit. He saw something and or heard something or whatever, and that led him to decide to end his own life, which I know is a sin in Catholicism. I'm not sure he's Catholic. I think he might be Episcopalian or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's probably a sin in whatever religion he's like a priest in. So what was it exactly that led him in that direction too? I think is something of a question still for me.
Yeah, that's one I fear. Oh, I fear that's going to be unanswered, and I fear that that character is going to be perhaps leave this season as the most underutilized character or just unexplained character. With the things that they have to answer, the things we're going to do, and if we're going to set up anything, I do fear we're not going to get back to that. That's just a prediction for the finale.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I expect us to get back to it next week or anything, but it
Yeah,
just lingers a little bit for me anyway. I guess I want to remind people of it. If we don't get anything else at all,
yeah,
maybe that's fine, and you can infer something like, oh, well, whatever he learned was so bad that not only he couldn't deal with it or didn't want to deal with it, but maybe it's like destroyed his faith in God.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like it'd be easy enough to just kind of make that sort of inference that what he learned was that there's this like demonic entity or whatever, and look, if God exists and is infinite and benevolent and all powerful, like how could God allow such a thing? So okay, God
yeah,
must not exist because this entity exists. Maybe it could be something like that, and that's it. If we don't get anything more, that's where I'm going to land. But it lingers for a little bit for me as a question
yeah.
I wanted to mention. Because I think that's a good thing to do here as we enter the season finale. Okay, what are our lingering questions? So I don't know. Are there others that occur to you, right?
Only if there is more to learn about Tom's wife and Evan's mom. I think we've gotten the finality there. We've read the letters, we understand the story, we've heard different variations of it now. I think we know the end of that. We've not seen, nor will we probably see anything definitive. But is there, and maybe a tangent to that is because that all happened. Tom all along has known or felt or understood about what's happening in this island, just been refusing to say it or admit it, for the sake of just wanting to, I don't know, do some good or protect his son or whatever. But he's seen this from a long time ago that something this island did this to his family.
Yeah. I think with regard to that, Tom's wife, Evan's mother, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that gets revisited in hypothetical season two,
Hmm.
more than I expect anything related to that in next week's season finale.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so I'm thinking back to even I think it was last week when I said something like, "Oh, well, they've introduced us to the idea that there's an insane asylum on this island. We have to go to there." I
And
don't
we
necessarily think
didn't.
that's going to happen next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't, and I don't think it wouldn't make a lot of sense to me if we did next week. It's possible, but I'd be really surprised if we get a season two, which I hope we do. That if we didn't go there in season two at some
Yeah.
point for some
Yeah.
reason, because there's a lot of horror tropes you can mine out of that. So good, yeah. I mean, that mostly covers it. I mean, I guess one more, which is much closer to the season finale, is the end of this episode. There are two questions. One you mentioned before, which is what is Tom going to do? We can talk about that more. The other, to get it in there, is who's Mitch? What was that phone call about?
And
Do you have
that
anything
that
here?
yeah, that I honestly have no answer nor even a speculation of what that was all about.
I Here's what I've got. The best I can tell, Mitch is not a character that we have seen.
Right.
It's possible I might be wrong, and maybe he was there somewhere in the margins, you know. But as best as I could determine, he is not a character that we've seen. If I'm wrong, let me know. Reach out, leave a comment, you can send me an email, whatever. Um, he is credited. He's in the end credits of the episode as being played by Cameron Ross. Okay, now this Cameron Ross. Don't get confused if you're doing IMDb. It's not the first. It's not Cameron J. Ross or whatever. It's Cameron Ross. He's an assistant editor on Widow's Bay.
Hmm.
So I don't think that we've seen him. I think he's getting the credit because he's the voice on the phone, and uh, and that's it. You know. So I unless we really miss something, I don't think that we know who Mitch is. And like I went back and checked even within this episode, like, oh, was that the name of the guy who pointed out the problem with the electric generator? No, he was named something else. Like, oh, was that the name of the guy he talks to on the phone about the storm early in the episode? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, who is Mitch and why is he calling and what does he mean? He says like it's going. Any speculations about that?
I'm
Not it's
wondering
coming. He says
now
it's
if
going.
if you introduce someone like that in that way, is that someone who will then we will play a bigger role we will be introduced to in the finale? And why would you introduce someone in a finale like that unless they are some kind of major twist or turn that sets up something that we're not expecting? Um, but I just did a quick search to see. Yeah, I can't confirm any other role that he has played or any part that he has been in this show. Um, I don't
Yeah,
know.
looking at the IMDb, he has no acting credits on IMDb.
Hmm.
Cameron Ross. Um, so, this is one of the editors on the show, apparently. And so, I don't know, you could speculate about the behind the scenes details or whatever. Um, but it makes a certain kind of sense of, oh, we need someone to be the voice on the phone. Like maybe even it's something that came up post production or something. I don't know. But curious to me that you've got one of the assistant editors
Yeah,
is the voice on the phone, apparently.
interesting. Well, we're going to
Um,
follow that in the finale to see if we get a Mitch and what role that might play. You
it's
know,
entirely possible, by the way, too, that they might introduce Mitch as a character played by a different actor next week.
that's true. They just
I don't know.
they just use the voice. Yeah, that's true.
Uh, so I am curious about that. I don't know. I don't have a lot of I started to wonder, he was saying it's going, you think power or but it doesn't seem to be that, it's not accompanied by lights flickering or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I don't have good speculations to throw in there. What about Tom? I You don't think he's gonna go kill Ruth, do you?
I don't think that he is going to go kill Ruth. I mean, Patricia has put enough of the what are we gonna do? Just put a gun to the back of her head and and just get no, we're not gonna. I don't think he's gonna do that. I think that there might be some sort of sense of, hey, Ruth, come on over to us and join us, in the shelter, getting her out in the storm where she's in a dangerous situation and things just sort of take care of themselves. But no, I don't see Tom as a just straight up murderer.
Yeah. And I mean, Wick's up for it apparently.
Oh yeah.
That's maybe part of my thought here is like if I were Tom, or they said we know Tom, if he could bring himself to be okay with the idea of killing Ruth, why not let Wick do it? You know? So I definitely don't think that it's you're not going to do anything. I'm going to go kill her myself. I don't read it that way. I think he has something else in mind. It is interesting that she is apparently like the only one or the only significant person, I guess, who's been mentioned who hasn't
Yeah.
made it to the shelter. She's just at
Yeah.
home. So that does create that opening. It definitely does seem like Tom is planning to head out into the storm, which is relatively brave and also stupid, given that he saw what happened to Todd.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some sort of combination of, yeah, the motivation to end this, obviously more than the fear of seeing what has happened in this storm, or I don't know. I don't know what else he would be incentivized by to go out in this, and try to fix this thing. It's got to just be we're taking care of this Ruth problem right now. But I just don't see him doing that.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of weird too, because it's mentioned prior to the presentation that Ruth is out there and he
Hmm.
says, "Oh, don't worry, we'll figure something out," with the implication that if she were just left in her home, she's at risk, So not to sound too harsh or anything, but from a certain point of view, I could see coming to the decision in light of the presentation, not not all the way in the direction of, yeah, hey, Wick, go shoot her in the back of the head, but to simply, oh, well, if she died in the storm, maybe that wouldn't be so bad, and we
Yeah,
just won't do anything.
that's what I'm saying. If
You
we
know
just
what I
sort of
mean?
nudge her in the right direction, we're not complicit and things just took care of themselves.
No, but I'm saying like if there was previously the thought that she's at significant risk because she's not in the shelter, she's just at home. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, of
Yeah.
course, anyone who goes out to try to help her would also be at risk, both on the way to her home and on the way back
Yes.
from her home.
This is true.
And
Yep.
so it would be, I mean, like even in a real world sense, it would be easy enough for me to see the line of rationalization that, well, no, we can't expose anyone to that risk. We can't expose her to the risk of traveling to the shelter at this point. You know what I mean? There's actually less risk even for her just to try to say, like, bunker down and do the best you can out there, Ruth. Sorry. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Um, but I don't think that's what's going to happen in the show. I'm just thinking about it almost from a more like I don't know. I was going to say from a real world point of view, but I am imagining a real world where the supernatural curse is real and so on and so forth. But hopefully you're following me there. I am curious to see what
Yeah.
Tom has in mind. I think you're probably right. Like probably he's going to try to go to Ruth and then maybe not. I don't know. Maybe kind of sort of try to let her die by the storm. I don't know exactly.
Yeah. Or is this left up to like well, I don't know how many people in the town are privy to what's going on or what the curse is, but is this you know, is the town going to decide or is the group going to decide what happens here? I'd hate to think that that sort of mob mentality of what they might do with Ruth if they learn this.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that. I don't think that that has been seeded properly. I mean, because you have all those tourists there and all of that as
Yeah.
well. Maybe you could see the townies if sufficiently going in that direction, but
Yeah.
I'm a little bit doubtful. A little bit
I've seen
doubtful that you're going to get that.
I've I've seen and heard some people reference Stephen King's Storm of the Century, which is about a storm that hits an island and it won't go away because someone has cursed the island and it won't leave. If someone on the island sort of emerges and says, "We can make this leave if you sacrifice one of your children to become like the next sort of monster of this thing." And so there's the town's or the island's decision is sacrifice a child or keep this storm that's going to kill us all. So anyway, just a similar parallel, maybe not exact.
No, that's a good reference because whether it tells us anything about what's going to happen in the Widow's Bay season finale or not, they're playing with that, playing with all sorts of Stephen King stuff in the show. So
All kinds of, yeah,
um,
yeah.
that's a, yeah, that's a good call out, if nothing else. It does sort of feel to me like they've got a lot to do, but
Hmm.
you know, TV shows can be pretty efficient when it comes down to it. A lot could happen over the course of one episode, even if it's half an hour. So
I do
but
think, I'm trying to check this in real time, but I do think the finale is the longest episode of the season, if I saw that correctly. So at least we're getting a little bit of a extra runtime to get through it. Yeah, 48 minutes longer than the premiere's 43 minutes.
all right. Yeah, so definitely longer. This one was like 32. And those runtimes generally include the closing credits also, which
Yeah.
run for 2 or 3 minutes at least.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
if we were on network television, this would be the difference between a half hour and an hour, right?
Yeah.
We'll build in time for commercials and all of that. Let's see, just trying to make sure we're not missing anything. I think we've pretty much covered what I wanted to talk about. Um, Anything else you want to talk about on this one before we
No,
wrap up?
I think that's good. One of the more I think for me anticipated finales in a while. Really looking forward to seeing what happens here.
Yeah, same. Hopefully, all will keep with us. Join us next week. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, please do. If you're leaving a good rating, type up a little review or whatever, wherever you are on the podcast app or whatever. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. And be sure to check out tvobsessive.com. You can find written work on all sorts of TV shows. And we have a number of things coming up this summer that we're going to be covering there. And as for the podcast, we'll be back next week talking about the season finale of Widow's Bay.
All right, I cannot wait. We'll see you next time.